Okay, good morning, everyone. We've got it recording, and here in a minute we'll have it live. Delegate Mounts, are you here? Or Senator Mounts? Sorry. I see Tom laughing. Okay.
What did I just do? God darn it. Why can't we hear him?
Remember to mute your microphones, everyone, if you're not a speaker, please. Okay, good morning. I'd like to call this meeting to order. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Senator Mounts, would you be willing to offer prayer this morning?
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. I'd be honored to. Dear Lord, we come to you in thanks and praise. We ask for your forgiveness. We ask for your strength. We ask for your guidance as we organize our priorities. We point ourselves back to our top priority, which is to love and serve you in Christ's name. We all join together and say amen. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Eastern Shore delegation. Today is Friday, February 10th, 2023. Today we are joined by our first presentation from a cabinet secretary from agriculture, Kevin Addix. We also have Maryland Farm Bureau presenting today. The Department of Legislative Services will give the delegation a fiscal briefing, and then finally Bay to Beach Area Heritage. Good morning, Mr. Secretary. I understand you're in Washington, D.C., and we appreciate you taking the time to share with us. This is sort of a handshake, if you will. We're hoping to hear from many of your colleagues in the administration as we kind of say hi to you as a delegation and all your members. So thank you very much for being here.
Well, thank you, and thanks for giving us the opportunity of I guess, being the first to come in. So I just really wanted to introduce myself to anyone who I don't know, and also introduce our agency to anybody who may be new. I've got a great team from the agency on who will take it over in a few minutes and give you just a quick overview of the nuts and bolts of what we do at the Department of Agriculture. But from a really high level perspective, I just want to bring the message from the governor that, you know, when he says leave no one behind, he's talking about the Eastern Shore too, right? He's assured me, he's assured the other secretaries, you know, every time there are big ideas that come up about, you know, this part of the state or this problem, the governor himself, the chief of staff, Fagan Harris, are the first ones to say, yeah, time out, but what are the headlines from the other parts of the state? Right? What's in 4 years? What's going to be the big headline from the Eastern Shore? What's going to be the big headline from Western Maryland, Southern Maryland, et cetera? So they're very conscious of that. I was really excited to have the governor and lieutenant governor come to the Taste of Maryland agriculture event last Thursday night. That was a big deal. I'm not sure that they realized what it was, but when they got there, it was clear. And it was clear that this is something that, well, first of all, I told someone last night, it helps that we put on a good party. It helps that we put on a good party. I've not seen other industry groups put on a show like that. And so, it's really, really impressive if you're new walking in. And at the cabinet meeting on Friday, the governor was very clear to everybody that was the benchmark, and that, you know, if you want to see how an industry represents itself, you have to get to know agriculture. So that made all of us very proud. The governor has some really big goals, and you heard him outline that at the state of the state address, also at the inauguration, and then a little bit at the Taste of Maryland Agriculture event. Agriculture plays a role in every single one of those goals, whether it's feeding hungry, educating folks, making sure that our rural areas are competitive. Every aspect of the governor's priorities, down to greenhouse gases in the Bay, obviously, it has to do with agriculture. We will be involved in it. Something that I want to do just top level at the agency, other than fill a lot of vacant positions, and you'll see some announcements coming up on some positions soon. We have to be more proactive as an industry. This is Maryland's #1 industry. And so, I've been working on in the industry on the outside of MDA for 20 years. And I've noticed that the industry and the agencies have been reactive rather than proactive. Stuff comes at us. And of course, stuff's going to keep coming at us. A lot of it in the legislature, a lot of it from the federal government. But we have to be more proactive. We have to get at the table the year before this stuff comes at us and figure out what it is, and are there ways to work to mitigate what's coming at us, or change its course, or at the very least we'll have a better plan on how to push back on it. So that's going to be a top priority. It's just communication, getting out there, meeting not just with the industry, and I'm doing a lot of that. I met with 4 groups yesterday and spoke to 3 of them. The tires on the state car are going to need to be changed soon, because I'm trying to get everywhere as soon as possible. And I did want to put it out to you, if you hear of anything happening in your micro areas, your districts, and you'd like to have Department of Ag represented. I'm not going to be able to get to everything, but I want the agency to be there. I want us interacting with farmers. I want us interacting with the community throughout the state. So don't assume we know about events and meetings, and please invite us. And with that, just a big thank you to you and your representation of the shore, of the traditional, of the new farmers, obviously of poultry. These are industries we have to keep, and we have to do more than keep. We have to promote. We have to make them more profitable. The state does a great job of preserving farms. We got to keep doing that, but we have to start preserving farmers' pockets as well, and making sure they're making more money. Because if a farmer's profitable, it's just going to be better for everybody. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I will want to turn it over to my team. Anything from me before the team goes?
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and go to the team? I don't see questions. And Mr. Secretary, you're well known to the delegation, and message back to the governor to thank you for, or thank him for bringing you on board. It's the most important industry on the shore, in addition to the state. And you are well known to us, and the work that you do, and well respected. And in return, our Eastern Shore delegation is unified on a handful of things. This is one that we are completely unified behind, and we'll work very closely with you to support your goals, which I'm sure will align with our goals on Eastern Shore. So go ahead and let's have your team present.
Great. So I see we've got in order left to right, Steve Connolly, Jessica Hackett, and Hans Schmidt. Take it away.
They need to unmute themselves.
Yep, they're still on mute.
I'm sorry. I thought we had been unmuted. We have a screen or a presentation to share, but it's saying that the host disabled participant screen sharing. So I need to.
We're working that on our end real quick. Sorry about that.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, while that screen is coming up, I'll offer, if you want to let our team know which cabinet secretaries you'd like to see next, I can put in a good word for Friday morning.
Yeah, I will, and I'll send you an email.
Okay, great.
We've had a handful accept, and I
Great.
would encourage
Great.
the other your colleagues. These are handshake opportunities. I don't expect there to be a lot of heavy debate in these first opportunities. It's mainly introducing us to you and you to us. So yeah, we will reach out to your office for some help.
Excellent. All right, thank you.
Okay, Chairman Adams, Steve Conley, Deputy Secretary, Maryland Department of Agriculture, and we'll just get started here. In Maryland, there are approximately 12,300 farms, about 2 million acres in farmland. The average farm size is 165 acres. It's a $8.25 billion industry with $3 billion of value-added agriculture. The Maryland Department of Agriculture is made up of basically 4 divisions: marketing, animal industries, and consumer services, plant industries and pest management, resource conservation, and the Maryland Ag Land Preservation Foundation. We cover a lot of ground with a variety of different programs. A couple of the issues I think that we wanted to cover, just to give you an update, and I think one of the most important ones that we've been dealing with since about this time last year is highly pathogenic avian influenza. It's a highly infectious disease of poultry with a very high mortality rate. We've had incidents in Maryland over the past year, starting with last February. There was an outbreak in Delaware, which is right on the Maryland line, and shortly thereafter we had outbreak in Warwick. So it spreads primarily with wild birds, specifically wild migrating waterfowl. This epidemic right now. Our first case in Delmar was February 23rd, and that was in Delaware. We've had 6 cases total in Maryland, 3 in Cecil County, all revolving around the Index Farm in Warwick. It was a pullet grow-out facility and 2 egg-laying operations that are connected. We had a broiler operation in Queen Anne's County. This past fall, we had some pet ducks in Pasadena. And then just most recently around Thanksgiving, we had an outbreak in Washington County at a laying operation for egg layers. It's a breeder operation for egg layers. And across the country, this virus has been detected in 47 states. There have been 757 confirmed flocks. A little over 58 million birds have had to be depopulated across the country. And of course, that has an effect, once you go to the next slide, on egg prices. I'm sure everybody's heard the egg price issue. Egg prices really spiked around the holidays, and for 2 main reasons. One is basic inflation that was affecting egg prices prior to the avian influenza outbreak, and the fact that we had about 7% less production of eggs during a high demand period. So egg prices have gone up. I think we'll see some easing of those egg prices. So on the Delmarva Peninsula, the poultry industry really doesn't recognize state lines. It's an industry that's important to all 3 states, Maryland, Delaware, and Virginia. We have an agreement with the industry as well as our partners at the Delaware Department of Agriculture to work together in case there is an outbreak. When the outbreak occurred in Delaware, Maryland, we set up a joint incident command center in Dover and worked the incident cooperatively with USDA, Delaware Department of Agriculture, MDA, and industry. I think we had pretty good success in containing the outbreak, as well as getting the virus eliminated in the area, so it didn't spread further than it did. But it's still a high risk right now. There are current outbreaks in Pennsylvania and Virginia. And we have to just be on our toes, make sure that we're using the best biosecurity available, reminding our producers to be extra careful, follow their biosecurity plans, try not to make any missteps. And it's still a major threat because it's in the wild bird population. So let me move on. Another issue, and I know that hopefully Delegate Jacobs is there, is blue catfish. Our office has the seafood marketing division where we are promoting Maryland seafood. We've spent a lot of effort in promoting the use of blue catfish through outreach and promotions. We have a chef that we do a lot of events where we do tastings to try to encourage people to try blue catfish, and if they like it, to start purchasing it. We have we're going to be receiving a grant from USDA. We're going to work with the Maryland Food Bank to purchase blue catfish to get it into the hands of people that probably wouldn't normally be able to purchase it through the Maryland Food Bank food programs. We're producing with the Maryland Public Television a documentary about blue catfish, and so there's a lot of room for growth in blue catfish. I think it's a major threat to the native species in the Chesapeake Bay. It's we need to eat as many of them as we possibly can. We are having increases in harvest as well as blue catfish being consumed, but it's going to be a long road, but we need to do what we can now to get started. Under the Office of Plant Industries and Pest Management, one of the areas that we've had a lot of focus in the last several years is the spotted lanternfly. I see Kevin Hornberger there. I'm sure he's got them flying around his house. They are a real nuisance. They're natives of Asia. I believe they came in on some landscaping rocks or stone from, I believe, China. They're first found in Pennsylvania. They feed on a variety of different plant species. Their preferred host is a tree of heaven, which is around in a lot of places. So they're very attractive, but they are a great nuisance. They are as they feed, they secrete a sticky substance called honeydew that lands on anything below it and grows sooty mold, which can kill plants below it, or it can get all over anything that's laying below it, and it's just a real nuisance. So we have this is a map of the spotted lanternfly in Maryland. Where we have infestation, it's just upper shore in central Maryland. It's prevalent, but it travels very well. It's a great hitchhiker. It can it likes to travel the routes of the interstates as well as railways, because it can hop onto a rail car and be in another state pretty quickly. So we do have a website where people can report their sightings, and as you can see in the chart, we've had increases in sightings as people become more aware, and it's something we have to deal with. I believe that our staff was out helping at a winery just this week, where they scraped off, I think, 6,000 egg masses off of grapevines, and it loves grapevines. So it's a threat to our wine industry. Hans?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Hans Schmidt. I'm the Assistant Secretary for the Office of Resource Conservation. We work with Maryland farmers to help balance crop and livestock production while also trying to protect our natural resources and the environment. So our responsibilities really fall under 4 programs. First is Nutrient Management Program. That program works to ensure that farmers and lawn care professionals are applying nutrients, whether it's commercial fertilizer, manures, or other types of nutrients in an environmentally sound manner. Second is our Conservation Grants Program that helps farmers finance water quality improvement projects on their farms. Third is our District Operations, which provides funding for operating assistance and staffing to the soil conservation districts so that the districts can deliver those conservation programs. And then last, our Program Planning and Evaluation helps develop new programs, oversees our Chesapeake Bay reporting, and manages our animal waste technology and our Healthy Soils program. So 3 key priorities really drive our strategic plan. First, we've ramped up our efforts to meet our Chesapeake Bay goals for 2025. We've done this in a number of ways. Recently, we've upped 100% cost share that's now available on 20 of our high priority permanent conservation practices. We've implemented the phosphorus management tool, and then we've also secured 53 new additional technical field positions out for the soil conservation districts. Second, climate resiliency. The office has integrated climate smart farming practices into our conservation agenda. We've developed a Healthy Soils program. We've supported research in climate smart conservation practices. We've introduced a couple new programs, the Cover Crop Plus program and the Healthy Soils Competitive Fund. And then finally, we are supporting the Tree Solutions Now Act by providing farmers with attractive payments to plant and grow trees on their farms. And then third, environmental justice. We want to make sure that we're ensuring that our programs and services are available to all farmers, whether you're a large traditional farmer, an urban small farmer, historically underserved communities. We've expanded our programs to provide financial and technical assistance. We've made considerable efforts to understand the challenges that the small urban farms have. They're very different than, say, the larger traditional farms that we've been giving services or provided service to in the past. So we've done a considerable effort to reach out and go to those areas, understand what the challenges those farmers have, and then bring them back and developing some programs that will help them. And currently, we've actually implemented the Small Farm Cover Crop program. We are in regs for the Power and Water Infrastructure program are going out. They'll be in the registry pretty soon, I think within the next week. And we're hoping that we're going to roll that program out July 1. So, this past year, after, again, we launched these new programs. We've also spearheaded a pilot project in Baltimore City to help high school students who want to pursue a career in turfgrass management. Our overall aim, again, is to provide all farmers with the support they need to meet water quality goals, enhance carbon-friendly farming methods, and to help build a resilient future for our agriculture and food production. Thank you very much.
And I guess I'll handle the ag land preservation. As many of you are aware, we do have the Maryland Agricultural Land Preservation Foundation. It was created in 1977. It's a state-county partnership program to perpetually preserve land through easement purchases. It's focused on preserving the most productive farmland to make sure that we have a base of high quality farmland in the state of Maryland to continue to provide food and fiber for our citizens. For calendar year 2022, 9,336 acres were preserved in 78 easements. Since its inception, over 350,000 acres have been reserved. The public investment is almost $900 million, covering 2,618 easements. It's kind of where the leaders in the have been the leaders in the country in purchase of development rights. It's a very popular program. It looks like it's going to be funded at record levels for this this current fiscal year, and there's a lot of demand for the program. So it's pretty successful. And I think Kevin touched on these 3 priorities earlier. We'll be glad to answer questions.
Okay, thank you very much. When we get off the screen share, I'll see if there's any questions from the members. I'm not currently seeing any. As we close, and I think we're going to move on to the Maryland Farm Bureau next. We're very excited to have as Eastern Shore Congressman Andy Harris, who I believe is on a key subcommittee for agriculture and related industries. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that appropriations committee in that role interfaces with your cabinet as we deliver resources, to the Eastern Shore. And Kevin, I still see you on the phone, and you're in Washington, D.C. So what an exciting opportunity for you to lead us on the Eastern Shore on a key priority for us. So I'll close by just saying thank you for being here. Okay, Delegate Hutchinson, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 2 quick questions. One, I was surprised that you actually addressed the blue catfish. So could you explain where do the boundaries divide between ag and DNR regarding blue catfish?
Well, sure. It's actually with all seafood. DNR regulates the fishery. Our role is simply marketing seafood products to get, once they have been legally caught, we're help processors and watermen sell their products into commerce.
Thank you. And just another question, Mr. Chair, the map concerning the lanternflies, do you anticipate at some point the entire state will be red?
Yes, and then probably sooner than later.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Senator Croza.
Thank you, Secretary Addix, and I appreciate the time that we spent before your confirmation hearing. I just wanted to, with everyone on the delegation call, it's been important to us over the past 8 years that we've had a agriculture secretary that has been so visible on the Eastern Shore, making the rounds. We all have kind of different interests within the kind of the farm jurisdiction, whether it's poultry, grain, or other. So I just wanted to, did you have some thoughts that you could share that once we're out of session, how you might be able to, partner with us so it's a little bit organized and not all over the place?
So I appreciate that. And yes, I know that all this is happening during session, and once we get through session and have both of us have a little more time, all of us have a little more time, I would like to set up regional meetings on the shore and kind of put you in the driver's seat to let you invite your local constituencies. And if you want to moderate these discussions, I think that would be great, but it would be a great way to focus on agriculture and maybe bring in some of our federal partners and all the local groups as well. In the meantime, I am attending and trying to say yes to every invitation that I can. Meetings of soil conservation districts and meetings of local farm bureaus and Dorchester Chamber. I'll be down for an event for them. So I am trying to get out and. But as I said, don't assume that I know all of these events and all of these different constituent groups. So please ask them. My email is kevin.addix@maryland.gov. Many of you have my cell phone. Please use it and get me out there. Don't assume I know about it.
Okay, seeing no further questions, again, thank you very much for your presentation. Members, we're gonna, I think, flip. I've asked Colby Ferguson if it was okay to push him off after our DLS briefing. I believe that DLS has a firm timeline that they've allocated for this meeting. So if you will, let's have Valerie Monroe, Arnold Aja, and Hiram Bursch with DLS come online, and we'll respect your time. And thank you, Maryland Farm Bureau, for deferring so we could get our fiscal briefing in, which is very important. And we thank you for being here. Floor is yours. You're on mute.
Yes. Good morning. I'm Hiram Birch, and we have a presentation. It's called the State Aid to Local Governments Overview that Arnold's going to put on the screen. Just a few opening remarks before we go into the details of the report. The 9 counties on the Eastern Shore will receive around $829 million in FY 2024. This represents a $77 million or 10.3% increase in funding. So the state budget includes a considerable increase in funding for local governments. It's a pretty significant increase when you look at prior years. On a per capita basis, state aid ranges from around $900 in Talbot County to almost $2,900 per capita in Caroline County, which receives the most state aid on a per capita basis when you compare it to the other 23 local jurisdictions. 4 Eastern Shore counties are ranked in the top 5 in the level of support received on a per capita basis. That includes Caroline, Somerset, Wycomico, and Dorchester. Cecil County is ranked 10th in the level of state support, and it's close to the statewide average. 4 counties, Talbot, Kent, Worcester, and Queen Anne's, receive less state aid when compared to other jurisdictions due to their relatively high local tax base. Around 70% of state aid to local government is allocated based on local wealth, whereby more affluent jurisdictions receive less state funding. And local wealth is measured by a jurisdiction's property tax base, the county assessable base, and the local income tax base, which is measured by net taxable income. Now, before we go further, there is something we need to talk about, and that deals with the revisions to net taxable income data. Local income tax base is calculated by using data from local income tax returns filed on or before November 1st. In practice, the Comptroller Office releases a report in December that shows net taxable income as of November 1st for the prior tax year. This is used in many state funding formulas, including the foundation program and several targeted programs for education, including compensatory aid, English language learners, and the special education aid. Due to the delay in processing tax returns for tax year 2021, the Comptroller's Office had to release an updated report in January that included a more complete measure of the local income tax base. The delay in processing the tax returns resulted from legislation passed during the 2020 session that allowed pass-through entities to make estimated payments on behalf of their resident members. The update in local net taxable income will increase state expenditures for education aid by around $8.6 million and provide an additional $53.6 million in funding for the disparity grant, which is targeted to 10 low wealth jurisdictions. However, the allocation of the state education aid among local school systems varies based on the local wealth. On the Eastern Shore, 5 local school systems, Caroline, Cecil, Dorchester, Somerset, and Wycomico, are expected to receive additional funding, whereas Queen Anne's County is expected to receive a decrease in their funding. 3 local school systems, Kent, Talbot, and Worcester, will realize minor adjustments to their funding levels. Now, the administration has already indicated that they're going to provide a supplemental budget to provide full funding for the disparity grant. So that will be an additional $53.6 million. We are still waiting for the administration to indicate how they're going to address funding for the state education aid programs. So once we find out from the administration what is happening to the education aid numbers, we will be releasing new reports to show the updated state aid information. But Arnold and Valerie is going to provide you an update on county municipal aid and also education aid. And the county municipal aid numbers you see in this overview report do reflect the information that will be provided to local governments. So Arnold, I turn it over to you to talk about county municipal aid.
Thanks. So the 9 counties on the Eastern Shore will receive $80.9 million in county municipal aid, which represents a $8.3 million or 11.4% increase from the prior year. The Eastern Shore will receive $4.8 million in funding under the existing police aid formula. The majority of funding under the police aid formula is based on population density. More urbanized jurisdictions with a higher population density receive a higher per capita grant amount. A small component of the formula targets funding to municipalities based on the number of sworn officers. Funding in fiscal 2024 is based on $1,950 per sworn officer. Since fiscal 2004, local governments must reimburse the state for 30% of the state police crime lab costs, which will total $5.7 million in fiscal 2024. The reimbursements are based on local crime rates and local wealth. The local reimbursement is deducted from each jurisdiction's police aid amount. The Eastern Shore will receive $2.9 million in enhanced funding based on the number of violent crime offenses occurring within the county. The Eastern Shore will receive $2.9 million in fire and rescue aid, and each county's funding is based on their share of property tax accounts relative to the statewide total. Each county is guaranteed a minimum 2% share of total funds, which is around $300,000. The Eastern Shore will receive $26.5 million in local health grants in fiscal 2024, and statewide local health departments will receive $115.8 million, which represents a $14.5 million or 14.3% increase from the prior year. Now, moving to transportation aid, the state provides capital transportation grants to local governments based on the amount of revenue allocated to the gasoline and motor vehicle revenue account. This funding is allocated to local governments through the local highway user revenues. And legislation from the 2022 session increased the local share of highway user revenues beginning in fiscal 2024, whereby state funding to local governments is based on 15.6% of total GMVRA revenues. Of this amount, 9.5% of GMVRA goes to Baltimore City, 3.7% of GMVRA goes to county governments, and 2.4% of GMVRA goes to the municipalities. As shown in the table, the distributions increase for fiscal 2025 through fiscal 2027, and beginning in fiscal 2028, the allocations reverts to the fiscal 2024 distribution. The Eastern Shore will receive $22.2 million in local highway user revenues, which represents a $4.2 million or 23.1% increase over the prior year. The county and municipal share is based on road mileage and vehicle registration. County governments will receive $11.5 million, and the municipalities will receive $10.7 million. Now, moving on to the disparity grant program. The state provides funding to 10 jurisdictions statewide where the per capita revenue collections from the local income tax is below 75% of the statewide average. Under the program, each eligible jurisdiction receives a grant that enables the per capita local income tax revenues to reach 75% of the statewide average. 5 counties on the Eastern Shore Caroline, Cecil, Dorchester, Somerset, and Wycomico will receive $32 million in funding under the Disparity Grant Program. This represents a $3.9 million or 14% increase from the prior year. The minimum funding level is set at 20% for jurisdictions with at least a 2.8% local income tax rate, 40% for jurisdictions with at least a 3% tax rate, and 75% for jurisdictions with a 3.2% local income tax rate. Changes in local income tax rates can impact the level of state funding provided under the Disparity Grant Program. For example, Cecil County reduced its local income tax rate in tax year 2023 from 3% to 2.8%, which reduces the minimal funding amount from 40% to 20%. And this results in a $1.1 million funding decrease. And instead of receiving $2.2 million in disparity grant funding, the county will only receive $1.1 million. Moving to gaming impact grants, Cecil County will receive $5 million in gaming impact aid in fiscal 2024, and Worcester will receive $5.6 million. Now I will turn it over to Valerie, who will present on the education aid.
Thank you, Arnold and Hiram. So around 85% of state aid to local governments will go to public schools. The 9 local school systems on the Eastern Shore will receive $622.2 million in direct aid in fiscal 24, which represents a $56.6 million increase from the prior year. In addition, the state will provide $55.2 million in funding for teacher retirement payments. State support for public schools remains relatively strong. 5 local school systems on the Eastern Shore will receive above average support. Somerset County will receive the highest level of state support when measured on a per pupil basis, which is $18,427. 3 other local school systems on the Eastern Shore, that's Caroline, Wycomico, and Dorchester, they're ranked in the top 5 for per pupil state funding, with Cecil County's per pupil funding exceeding the state average. Now we'll talk briefly on student enrollment. So on page 4 to 5, you will see that statewide student enrollment increases by 0.5% in fiscal 24, with 4 local school systems on the Eastern Shore posting gains in student enrollment: Wycomico, Caroline, Cecil, and Somerset, and 5 school systems realizing decreases in student enrollment. On page 46, you will see that a high percentage of public school students on the Eastern Shore are eligible for targeted educational services, and this includes free and reduced price meals, English language learners, and special education. 6 local school systems have a targeted student population above the state average of 76.6%, and these include Somerset, Dorchester, Caroline, Talbot, Kent, and Wycomico counties. In Dorchester, Somerset, and Caroline counties, over 2/3 of public school students are approved for the free and reduced price meals. This compares with 36% in Queen Anne's County, which is the 5th lowest percentage in the state. However, Queen Anne's County realized the 2nd highest percent increase in the number of students approved for the free and reduced price meals. This increase is due to an alternative approach in identifying these students. On page 47, in addition, most local school systems on the Eastern Shore are experiencing a rise in the number of English language learners. The annual increase exceeds 10% in 3 school systems, with Wycomico County realizing the 3rd highest increase at 17.8%, and Caroline County realizing the 5th highest increase at 12.9%. Talbot County currently has the 3rd highest share of English language learners in Maryland. This represents 14.6% of student enrollment. Only Prince George's and Montgomery counties have a larger share of English language learners as a percent of student enrollment. Wycomico County has the 5th highest share of English language learners, representing 11% of student enrollment. Also, 2 of the top 5 local school systems with the highest proportion of students receiving special education services are on the Eastern Shore. These are Cecil and Somerset. The percent of students receiving special education services ranges from 9.7% in Dorchester County to 17.9% in Cecil County, with the state average at 13.3%. I want to turn it back over to Arnold, who will provide a brief walkthrough of our website. Thank you.
Thanks. So I quickly want to walk you through our website to show you how you can access all of our state aid resources. And starting from the Maryland General Assembly website, you will click on the Legislative Services hyperlink located to the top in the top right corner of the page. From our homepage, you will then click on the Budget tab, followed by the State Aid to Local Governments subtab. Once on our page, we provide you with a snapshot of the fiscal 2024 allowance to the right side of the page. And to the left, you will find out all of our resources broken down into sections. Under State Aid Reports, you can access our 2-year charts by government entity. Under 2-year charts by program, you can access the state aid by program. The first couple of pages are devoted to the statewide numbers, and then you also can access county-specific numbers. We also prepare state aid data dashboards, and the first data dashboard is the one that you will find on our main page. We also have a dashboard that provides you with the share of the state aid increase by program. And we also prepare 2 maps, one of the per capita state aid and another of the annual percent change. Under session reports, you will find the full report, which we just presented on, and we will make sure to update the report with the correct figures once the budget is finalized. And same thing, once the numbers have been revised and finalized, we hope to make available some local delegation briefing summary reports. And finally, under highlighted, users can download state aid data in Excel or CSV formats going back all the way to 2010 and by county or statewide as well. So that would be it. And I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Thank you very much. We do have a couple questions. I saw Delegate Jacobs' hand first. Delegate Jacobs.
Okay, thank you very much. I got a question for Hiram. In the beginning of the presentation, when you were still on page 4, you referenced minor adjustment levels in several Eastern Shore counties. And I said my question is, can you give me any kind of ideas on those minor adjustment levels, especially in Kent County?
Right. It's in those jurisdictions, it is very minor. So I'll have to pull out a report, but I can get back to you. It's not a significant increase. So let me just 1 second. Okay. For example, in Kent County, the adjustment is less than $5,000.
Less than 5?
Yes, less than $5,000. And some of the other jurisdictions in Caroline County, they're expected to get an additional around $1 million. In Cecil County, they're expecting to get an additional $3 million. In Dorchester County, around $300,000. In Queen Anne's County is the jurisdiction that's facing a more of a significant decrease. It's around $400,000 decrease. Somerset County should be getting around $1 million more. Talbot County is expecting a decrease of $25,000. Wycomico should be getting around $2.2 million more. And Worcester County's decrease is around $11,000.
All right.
Now, we do want to note that these allocation adjustments are based on utilizing the revised net taxable income numbers. We have not, the administration has not provided a supplemental budget to reflect these changes. They are still looking into this issue. They, as stated earlier, they did indicate they are providing a supplemental budget increase for the disparity grant program. So we're still looking into how this is going to be addressed because other jurisdictions are also affected by this change as well. And I also wanted us to make mention that there is some thought that the student enrollment numbers, primarily the free and reduced price meal count, may slightly change. So it's my understanding is that there may be some other slight adjustments to some of the education aid formulas. So that is why nothing has been decided at this point about using the revised NTI numbers. What we have just talked about and what we have shown is if we use the local net taxable income data that reflects a more complete measure of local wealth, this will be the net effect on state aid. But right now, what's posted on our website reflects the governor's allowance, which does not reflect the most recent NTI numbers. And once we receive clarification from the administration and from the Department of Budget and Management, we will be updating all of our state aid charts on the webpage. And I do want to mention this is the first time this has happened regarding the net taxable income, and the state agencies, both the Department of Budget and Management, the Maryland State Department of Education, and Legislative Services that use this information from the Comptroller's Office. We weren't aware of the revision until January. So the governor's budget, all of the state aid formulas calculations were determined before this revision. And the Comptroller's Office is working with DBM and Legislative Services to make sure this doesn't happen again in the future. So this is kind of maybe a one-time issue. We don't expect this same issue to occur next year. We kind of realize what happened, and there's greater communication is going to be occurring in the future to prevent this from happening going forward.
Okay. Delegate Jacobs, are we good? Next up, Delegate Hartman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the presentation. My question is in regards to the police aid and the portion of it that's based on population. How can we factor into that equation the population swell in Worcester County because of the tourism? We go from a small population to 300,000 people in an area that typically has 7,000. So how can the summer swell be factored into that, because it certainly has a big impact on resources that we need?
Right. Well, the police aid formula only addresses the population that is based on your census count. So it doesn't take into account the tourist impact. However, one component of the police aid formula is the municipal sworn officer count. And in that count, it's based on the number of law enforcement officers. So Ocean City will receive a higher amount of funding due to the fact that they do employ more police officers, but that component of the formula is only 4.4%. So the vast majority of the formula only reflects population and population density. So
Thank you. Thank you for the answer.
Delegate Grice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hey, Hiram, can you explain how, with the aid to local governments, how local tax effort makes a difference in how much funding these local jurisdictions actually get? Because I know in Kent County, when they lowered their local income tax, it had a negative impact on their state aid.
Right. The only program that is affected by local tax effort is primarily the disparity grant program. And what happened there is that in 2009, due to significant growth in the disparity grant program, they put a cap on the program that a jurisdiction could not receive more funding than they received in fiscal 2010. Due to changes in local wealth and the economic situation, it became apparent that the cap did not reflect the variations in local wealth. And so back in 2013, the General Assembly approved legislation that established a minimum funding level for the disparity grant program. This minimum funding level is based on tax effort. So as Arnold stated earlier, for a jurisdiction that has at least a 2.8% local income tax rate, they're guaranteed at least 20% of the formula calculation. For jurisdictions at a 3% rate, they get at least 40%. And for jurisdictions with the maximum 3.2% rate, they get a minimum of 75%. So that is what has happened, is that certain jurisdictions, for example, Cecil County, they have reduced their local income tax rate. So their minimum funding level under the disparity grant program decreases. And another jurisdiction, Washington County, has also reduced their local income tax rate. So they get less funding under the disparity grant program. So it's really only disparity grants, because the state really wants to make sure that if you're getting this additional support to help offset your local tax base, that you're at a minimum tax effort. So it's just primarily the disparity grant program.
Okay, last question. Good morning, Speaker Pro Tem.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for this presentation. This is one that I look forward to every year because I like the numbers and getting down to the information. So Hiram, always a pleasure to be with you. I have two questions. So I want to go ahead and stay on the same theme that you were just on, that Delegate Grice inquired about the local effort. So in particular, for Wycomico County, can you just explain, if at all, Wycomico County has a tax cap, but how does that affect the local government's tax effort towards getting a disparity grant?
Okay, the disparity grant is based on your local income tax rate. I believe that in Wycomico County, your tax effort maybe relates to your property tax, but Wycomico County imposes the maximum 3.2% local income tax rate. So they're already putting forth the maximum local effort they can for the disparity grant program. So there's really nothing more Wycomico County can do to get more funding under the disparity grant program. They're already at the max.
They're at the max, but so the tax cap that is in place, and I think Wycomico may be the only one in the state that has that. What bearing does that have at all?
That has no bearing, because your
not so much on the disparity, but just overall at budget. None at all.
It shouldn't have any impact on state aid, because the disparity grant is the only program that relates to your tax effort.
Okay. All right, thank you. The second half I wanted to ask about, there was a slide right after this one actually that you have up, police aid, but the one directly after it, it's the crime funding. How is that formula? Yeah, what comes into account for that formula? It was one that you had specifically on crime, where a jurisdiction can get more funding.
Right. So under this program, the governor put in $45.9 million in additional funding for the Police Aid Enhancement Program. And this is the same level of funding that was provided last year. So FY23 was the first time this funding was provided. The allocation is based on the number of total violent crime offenses in calendar year 2020. So each jurisdiction's share of the $45.9 million is based on their share of total violent crime offenses. You can see that in Baltimore City, around 38.3% of total violent crime offenses occurs there. So they get 38.3% of the funds. And the violent crime offenses includes murder, manslaughter, rape, robbery, and aggravated assault. So they're just basically looking at the number of offenses reported in the Uniform Crime Report for calendar year 2020. And the funding level in both FY23 and FY24 is based on the calendar year 2020 offenses. This is a discretionary program. It is not a program that is established in law. It's not like the police aid formula that the components are prescribed in statute. This is a discretionary program, and it is my understanding this is the allocation that the General Assembly agreed upon last year when they adopted the state budget. So the administration just continued to fund it for this year at the same funding level as last year.
Okay, and then last part for this one. So the funding that is received to the jurisdiction, it is probably outlined in legislation, but specifically what they are required to use it on? Is it supposed to go right back into the police efforts?
I would have to get back with you on that. I just believe that this is the funding that goes directly to the jurisdiction.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Seeing no further questions, DLS, thank you for coming in today. I know we had some time constraints, but very important to get this information early in the budget process, and we appreciate your time today.
And we will be updating all of these reports once a supplemental budget comes from the administration. So everything will be updated and posted again with the new revised numbers once they come out.
Okay, very good. Maryland Farm Bureau, thank you for letting me change the calendar a little bit and having you come back on. Hopefully that it was very meaningful for you to do that for us. We knew a firm timeline with DLS, and we appreciate your flexibility. I see Colby on the call, and I think we have the president and the first or second vice president on with us today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Eastern Shore delegation for having us in. I know you had the Delmarva Poultry chicken industry in last week, and Chicken Association, and then you just had the Secretary of Ag. And so we're going to kind of talk a little bit about the Eastern Shore's second largest industry, which is the grain side. With me today is our president of Maryland Farm Bureau and also Cecil County farmer Wayne Stafford, as well as our second vice president and Kent County grain farmer Jonathan Quinn. So I'm going to turn it over to Wayne and have him talk about some budget asks that we're looking to work with the governor on and have in the supplemental, and then have Jonathan talk about some of how the grain industry is and grain farming on the shore. And then I'll finish real quickly with a couple of our priority bills for this session. So Wayne, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Colby. And I thank Eastern Shore delegation for having us on here, and want to reiterate our pleasure of Secretary Hacks for being selected by the governor to head up the Department of Agriculture, and then the work that the Department of Agriculture does on our behalf. First thing I wanted to mention was the funding for, as many of you know, we've had through previous administration, we implemented a tire recycling program for our farms, tires, and that will be funded, I guess, through the rest of this fiscal year. But it's not funded for the next fiscal year. And far as, tires are, our county was in the last round last year, and I've already got a mount of tires mounting up. And it could, especially these large tractor tires, they could cost you $300 to $400 a piece just to get them recycled. So we wanted to put it on your radar. I've already had a talk with Secretary Addix about it and get this funding. It's very, very important to the farming community, even from an environmental standpoint. You got all these tires sitting around and then collecting on that. The other thing I wanted to touch up on was shore up funding for the Maryland State Fair Board that funds a lot of our county programs, especially through the 4-H programs, premium funds and stuff to keep our county fairs and agriculture shows and stuff alive. And the last thing I wanted to mention too is the venison donation program. We have of course, I'm not probably telling a single delegate on the Eastern Shore delegation what a deer problem we have. But if you need to harvest these deers under damage permits, we have to be able to, would love to have the opportunity to donate these deer, that they be put to use, especially through the food banks. A lot of the prison systems use it and different things, but we got to have a place to go with them. Otherwise you just, you're not about to harvest these deer and just let them lay. So we need to have a place to go with them. And we would certainly, I would entertain any questions, but I'll let Jonathan Quinn go first. And then we'll answer any questions that you'd like to have. And I appreciate, once again, all your time today. Thanks for having us on.
Can you hear me?
There you are.
Yeah, okay. I don't think my video is working today. I'm on my phone. I'm on the road hauling chicken litter today. So I appreciate everyone's time and having us speak to you today. I just want to talk about what's going on in grain farming. Fertilizer input prices have been extremely high for the last 2 years. They're starting to soften a little bit, but not where they were, pre-pandemic. Nitrogen softened to about $400 a ton, potash around $500 a ton. Because of the synthetic fertilizer being up, we're paying a lot more for chicken litter also. So that's it follows the market just like, the fertilizer market does. And with $4 fuel, like I say, I'm headed to the Maryland-Virginia line right now to pick up a load down in the Pocomoke, Princess Anne area. So with $4 fuel, even though we get the cost share for transport, which is greatly appreciated, and encourage you to keep funding that program. It's a big help. Touch on grain prices. Of course, we're a grain deficit area here on the shore because of the poultry industry, but they still have to rail stuff in from the Midwest. And, it keeps us bases up, but, grain prices are still holding up. I checked last night, December corn $5.90, soybeans $13, which is still, respectable prices. But, we look for those prices to drop as the year goes on. There's a huge Brazilian soybean crop coming. They're looking for another record. I think the report the other day pegged it at 156 million metric tons. But the other side of it is also U.S. corn carryout was raised 25 million bushel, and soybean carryout was up 15 million bushel. So, and the other thing is usage is down because the cattle and feed is down. They're not shipping as much to China. right now because of, you know, the Brazilian crop getting ready to come on board. So once they get in harvest full swing, you know, that will dry up. You know, some of the bright spots here is renewable fuels, the aviation fuel and things like that. Hopefully that's gonna help us in the long run. You know, Pennsylvania was dry last year, so there's a lot of corn from the upper shore going to Pennsylvania. So that's helping us out. That's helping us out some. So that's about all I have.
Thank you, Quinny. I'll just say real quickly, just to kind of give a brief synopsis of 4 priority bills that we have, and then open it up to any questions you have on any other bills. Thank you to those that were able to make it over for our day in Annapolis on Wednesday. And so some of these are retreads that you heard if you were there, but House Bill 152, which is our urban agriculture grant program bill. This is a bill that was in last year that made it all the way through both sides and got hung up on sine die on third reader in the Senate. And honestly, it was because of a $500,000 input from a supplemental that got tied up. And so that bill's back again. And so hopefully we can get that bill passed. It was heard this past week in Environment and Transportation. It does not have a Senate cross file, so it's going to need to move out of the House quickly so we can have it over in the Senate for the full time. The other bill is the Agriculture Ombudsman for Value-Added Agriculture. This is a person at the Department of Ag working through a summer study. This really focuses on the meat processing problem that we just have a lot of farmers that just can't find places to process meat for the demand that's out there, on top of some other value added, whether it be forestry products or some not potentially hazardous food wants and things like that. So this bill would put that person at the Department of Ag. Actually, Department of Ag came to the table on our pre-filed Senate version, and I'm happy to say that Senator Carrozza's committee passed that out last week, and I believe it passed the Senate this week. So our bill hearing in the House is next week, and Delegate Jacobs and Otto's committee, and we'll be bringing a committee a bill that's already passed the Senate. So hopefully we can move that bill pretty quickly. Again, it's House Bill 389, Senate Bill 34. Our third priority bill is one that we had in last year, and this was a priority of the Eastern Shore, particularly the Delmarva Chicken Association, which is the property tax farm electricity tax exemption, sales and use tax exemption. And basically what this is what we found is that if your farm, all of your electricity ties back to your house meter, that's how my farm is, I pay no sales and use tax because it's residential. However, if you have an additional meter out at your grain facility or at your poultry house or at your dairy barn, that second meter is at a commercial rate and you pay 6% sales and use tax. After doing some discussions and whatnot, we found that the manufacturing facilities such as Purdue's processing facility and different manufacturers around the state, they're also tax exempt. So all this bill does is to bring those farm meters that are not tax exempt back in the level playing field with all the farmers. So the fiscal note, DLS is having a struggle with trying to get those numbers because it's hard to get because it comes pass through the electric companies. But we just did some back of the envelope numbers and looked and saw if every farmer in the state, every poultry house, every grain facility, every dairy barn, if all of them, which we know don't, if they all paid taxes on their sales and use tax, it would be about a $1.7 million hit. We're estimating somewhere between 50 and 60% of the farms are already tax exempt. So we're expecting it to be more like a $700,000 tax drop. So we think that's much more reasonable, particularly in a budget year like we have. And so we're hoping that bill will move forward. That is House Bill 592, which is Speaker Pro Tem is her bill, and Senate Bill 418. Senator Jackson on the Senate side. So those two bills have hearings coming up in the next week or so. And then the last bill I'll bring up is another, I'm sorry, it's House Bill 678 and Senate Bill 670. Sorry about that. The next bill, the final bill I'll talk about is another retread. That's the House Bill 592, Senate Bill 418. This is the property tax reassessment bill. We had some issues with the State Department of Assessment Taxation, reassessing particularly farm alcohol farms and equine facilities and giving them a significant increase in their tax assessment based on the buildings that they use. In most cases, were reuse of barns. And so we had a bill in last year that passed out of the Senate and got hung up in the House with an AG opinion that we come to find out was not quite accurate. So the bill's back in again this year. It creates the subclassification for those buildings to be assessed as agricultural use under the value added side. So those bills are the ones that we're personally working on, that are the ones that we worked on getting sponsors for. We're supporting many other ones, but I just wanted to put those on your radar. So thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. And before we go forward, I think Maryland Department of Agriculture is still on the phone. And one of the things I wanted to share is that University of Maryland Eastern Shore has, one of two agricultural schools in our state, right here in our backyard. And as we partner together with you and with the farmers, with the Department of Ag, it's wonderful to have that resource available to us for advancing the cause. So, Senator Croza.
Thank you, Colby, for that overview. And as you mentioned, we have some bills, some of your bills that you support moving through. And I was also, when you talked about the Speaker Pro Tem and I guess the chair of Senate B&T on as your sponsors for the sales and use tax exemption. I get that, obviously that bodes well. You didn't talk, just wanted to make sure the delegation knew that we have some bills that would hurt, the industry specifically. And I want to thank you, Colby, for your testimony yesterday, on Senate Bill 224, which is the zero emission medium and heavy duty vehicles regulations, the Clean Truck Act. And I just want to point out, and Colby, I'd like you to just kind of summarize that the impact on agriculture with that bill, but I want to just let my colleagues know that, what appears to be happening in our committee with some of these bills is that we all worked very hard last session to make sure that the push for all electric, was removed from the climate change bill. But now we have bills coming in that seem to be kind of a backdoor way to get there. And we heard testimony yesterday, not only from, I think, the farm community, but from other businesses, that the whole issue about diversification. So, Colby, if you could just quickly share the impact of SB 224, the Clean Trucks Act, on our farm community.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for bringing that up. I didn't want to bring everybody down on the Friday, but yeah, we do have some bills, obviously, that we have some challenges with, and this is one that was heard in the House Environment and Transportation Committee on Thursday or Wednesday, and then the Senate version yesterday. And really, when you think about it, Class A trucks, the road tractors, as I call them, the ones that you would call affectionately known as the 18-wheelers, those types of road tractors are just not going to work in the near future within this electric vehicle side of it. And so, really what the target is to target buses and small box vans and the Amazon trucks and the UPS trucks and things like that take small direct trips back and forth, where they can go away from their home spot, come back and charge at the facility. those types of smaller or medium duty type vehicles are going to work. When you move into the monsters, the big equipment, the ones that are pulling 80,000 pounds, the size of the battery is enormous. Just to give you a visual, so if you've ever seen a 18-wheeler and you see the sleeper cab on the back of it, so you've got the cab where they're at, and then you have that piece on the back of it. That's the size of the battery that's going to have to be in these road tractors. And so we're talking a battery that's 10 times larger than a Tesla battery. So a Tesla battery is roughly 50 to 75 megawatt hour or kilowatt hours. The road tractors are 565 kilowatt hours. So about roughly 10 times bigger than the typical Tesla car. So when my vision, or what I would like to see us do more of, which would help the agricultural industry, is to what Jonathan Quinn talked about just a little bit ago, is the biofuel side of it, particularly biodiesel. All of these road tractors that are on the road right now that we see every day that have apportioned tags on the back of them going up and down our highways and state roads on the Eastern Shore, all run on diesel. And they can all run on biodiesel as well without having to change the equipment out, to have to buy a new tractor. So, and the same thing goes within the farming community. We can run on biodiesel as well. So that should be the target in this state, is to diversify our renewable fuel standards and our renewable fuel usage. So the ag community and the trucking community doesn't have to buy all new equipment just to fit in a standard. And that doesn't even talk about the infrastructure needs, that there's zero places to plug in an electric truck in the state of Maryland right now. And you need a phase 3 or a level 3 charger, which does not exist in the state of Maryland right now, because Volvo, who's the #1 leader in the sale of heavy duty trucks, sold 127 in the whole United States last year. So the infrastructure is not there. This is a mandate on the manufacturer that they have to sell so many by 2027. And we have no infrastructure in here for anybody to buy them. So the fine is $37,000 a truck for every truck they don't sell in 2027. They're going to need to sell 2,500 plus trucks. And they've only sold 127 in the whole state, or in the whole United States. And they need to sell 2,500 in Maryland starting in 2027. So very unrealistic goal. That's why we oppose it.
So, and just to add, and I'll turn this over, Mr. Chair, I think it's so important to get that story out about the diversification and let other industries be part of this, not shut them down. What you just presented is basically, it's absolutely impossible to reach the goals as outlined in this bill, but to make that case and do the education that you can do this by including our present industries and not shutting them down. So I would just encourage you, Colby, to build that coalition with the other sectors, and just make the case that we can reach, it's much more reasonable to set something out where you can reach the goals by involving all the different industries.
I agree. And I think the Delmarva Chicken Association, they did written opposition to that bill. I know Lindsey Thompson with the grain producers feels the same way. So we will continue to push that. I know that there's some amendments that the Trucking Association put forward. I guess I would ask on your end, they did not go with all of it. There was some shall language in there that MDE shall delay if the needs and assessments are not met by 2027, and they changed it to May. And my feeling of May is it may never happen. So that's just my thoughts. I would like to see it go back to shall.
Speaker Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colby, thank you for your information today. And it's okay to bring up things that you say that might make us sad on a Friday. We rather know what they are up front than come back later and figure out how to fight them. So I do want to ask you, do you have a specific amendment? I know I met with Volvo and I met with some of the trucking industries, but do you have a specific amendment that could be provided for this particular bill? Anything in addition, or are you just...
I think, I think what the two sponsors of the bills agreed to pretty much everything the trucking industry, the trucking companies, and obviously they're the ones that's going to they're the ones going to take the heat on this, because quite frankly, a farmer's probably not going to, even if we have the infrastructure in place, I don't see a farmer switching to an electric truck in 2027. Maybe down the road, we would be some of the late adopters of it, just because of the cost of the infrastructure. It's cost roughly $80,000 to $120,000 for a phase or a tier level 3 charger. So that's probably not going to happen for us. But our biggest, what I would say is that if that language could go back to shall, so if and when they do the study, MDE does the needs assessment study and really looks at our infrastructure, our grid networking, how much it's going to cost to put in the charging stations. I think it's easier to adopt in an urban centers where we're going to be focusing on our school buses and commuter buses. And that's probably how we're going to meet the 2027 goal, is going to be with those, and then the small box vans. But when you start looking at it, it tiers up 28, 29, 30, 31, that, at the very beginning, it's almost like the low hanging fruit will take care of us at the beginning, but we're going to quickly fall behind if our infrastructure is not in place. So I like the shall language much better than the may. I think then that gives the MDE and the governor the ability to pull back the reins if we're not quite there, not quite ready.
Okay, I think it's another bill that sort of incentivize these stations getting installed, and some funding as well for that. So if you could just kind of stay in touch with that whole process and keep us apprised, that would be helpful.
There's a lot of bills out there. I know the governor has a bill that's a huge bill. Now, it's more of a leveling the playing field for the cost, on the upfront cost. It doesn't really get into as much on the infrastructure. I think Delegate David Frazier Adago has one that really focuses, I think he's got multiples that really focus on the infrastructure needs and some tax credits and things like that. So for like gas stations and things. So yeah, I agree. I think it's going to take a heavy load to get, when you look at the cost of switching from gas pumps to electric charging stations, is what we're going to need to do.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, I was at the Detroit Auto Show this past year, and I saw firsthand a box truck. We're not talking about the trucks you're using, but just a box truck for driving around with, different materials, and the sheer size of these batteries and the systems that, frankly, I'm not even sure on the market yet. Were amazing to me at that level. I can't imagine, what this looks like and how quickly we get from today to where you're saying these mandates come in. So I appreciate your testimony, Colby, on that. I see no further questions. Thank you, Farm Bureau, for being flexible with us today. We appreciate that.
Thank you, guys. If you need anything, just reach out.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Our last presenters, and thank you for your patience as well, Lisa and Kristen, Bay to Beach Area Heritage. Good morning.
Good morning. I think Kristen is on the phone. Yep, there she is. She's just going to say a few words first.
Hi there. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, for allowing us this time this morning. My name is Kristen Galler. I'm the current tourism manager for Wycomico County and the designated DMO. And with that, I'd like to say happy Tourism Day to everyone. I hope we'll be seeing you at Rams Head later today. The reason why I'm here today is actually with my role with the Beach to Bay Heritage Area. I'm the current board president, and we wanted to take this opportunity to thank you and express our appreciation for the support that the state has lent both to tourism and the heritage area over the years. We've been able to do a lot of great projects with the state funding that we've been afforded, and I have with us a very familiar face to many of you, Lisa Challenger, who's our executive director, and she has a brief presentation to share and highlight just some of the opportunities that we've been able to move forward with over this past year and assist our local heritage attractions. So Lisa, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Kristen, and thank you so much for hosting us today. I do have a presentation, if I can get a screen share. And it was really good to see a lot of you last night at the Taste of the Eastern Shore reception. That's always a fun event. So while I'm waiting for that screen share.
We're working on it.
That's okay. You may remember us as the Beach to Bay Heritage or as the Lower Eastern Shore Heritage Area, we decided to do a rebrand in 2020, and COVID hit, and we decided to sort of downsize our operations. We changed our name. We really made ourselves stronger. So we became the Beach to Bay Heritage Area in 2020, and we are one of 13 of the Maryland certified heritage areas under the Maryland Heritage Areas program. And as a regional partner for interpretation, stewardship, and development, our partners support about 3,000 jobs and generate nearly 30 million in tax revenues. And that is coming from a statewide study that was done in 2020 by Parker Phillips that the state had hired to do a statewide and individual heritage area assessment of the economic and programmatic impact. So I just wanted to kind of highlight a few of our accomplishments. We recently completed a 5-year strategic plan, about a year-long process involving lots of stakeholders. You, I believe, have a copy. We are sending you another along with our annual report. We do an annual report every year and do a lot of outreach with our newsletter, and we started tracking our media value with a lot of the articles that have been coming out. Most recently about the Smith Island cake sign, we estimated with the State Tourism Office's help about $134,000 media value for the content that we help create. And we're getting ready to do a project with Delmarva Public Media, which will really get the word out about some of the cool heritage facts that we have here in the Tri-County region. So I know that Rural Maryland Council was on the call earlier. I don't know if they still are. They are really one of our strongest partners and supporters, and we really love having them as a partner. I had a chance to tell Secretary Addix last night what a great partner they are. So with some of their funding, we created a series of 14 virtual video tours for our museums and historic sites, something we did during COVID to help keep them relevant when their doors had to be closed. We got a grant to do a whole variety of African-American heritage tourism products, including interpretive signs. We did a brand new self-guided driving tour of 29 sites around the Lower Shore. And we had help with the town of Berlin to fund the Tindley mural. And if you haven't seen that, it was really a fabulous project. And he is quite a famous native son of Berlin. And the project has really had a snowball effect. So lots of other good things have been happening. We helped lead a heritage tourism panel at the Maryland Tourism and Travel Summit, and we offer free workshops for folks who are interested in some of the heritage around the region. Again, we partner with all of our Eastern Shore tourism directors and our county planning offices. A couple of years ago, we were awarded the Chesapeake, screen share should be working. There we go. We were awarded the Chesapeake Country All-American, I don't know if you can see that, folks, All-American Road, and we are coming out with a byway-wide interpretive plan for the entire shore. We partnered with Smith Island United. They were there last night at the reception and got their cake marker sign within this Hungry for History program. Again, we partnered with the town of Berlin and Rural Maryland Council. We couldn't do it without them. We try to have a presence and help the National Folk Festival, which is becoming the Maryland Folk Festival this coming year. I just wanted to say that we really rely on the Maryland Heritage Areas program for our funding, and you can see we had a record level of grants awarded this past year, $528,000 to the organizations that you see on the screen. It was a really successful year for us. We also fund a mini grant program through the Heritage Area Funds, and over the past 4 years, those projects totaled $130,000. And you can see some of the organizations that took advantage of those mini grant funds, and they are from all of the counties here on the shore. So then for some of our efforts were rewarded. We were named the Nonprofit of the Year by the Ocean Pines Chamber, and our Tindley mural in Berlin won the Maryland Tourism and Travel Summit Best New Project. And we were there on stage to receive that, and it was really exciting. So, I mean, this, I just blazed right through, but I really, really want to say thank you, thank you, thank you for supporting the Maryland Heritage Areas program. I feel like we are really doing great work down here. We are reaching out to lots of communities that we never touched before, really gaining a lot of interest and support, and also your support of the Rural Maryland Council. Without the Rural Maryland Council, we just couldn't do what we do. So that is all I had. If anybody has any questions, like I said, you'll be getting an envelope in the mail. We are thanking you for your support of the Maryland Humanities Program. We received a grant this year from them, and we'll be sending out our annual report along with that. And thank you again for all the letters of support you write for me for these grants that we get. I know I might drive some of you crazy, but those letters of support really help. So thank you.
Okay, Lisa, thank you very much. And apologies on my behalf. I'm still learning the technology, so we fixed that.
That's okay. That's okay. I just went through it on my screen, but that is absolutely fine.
You were a natural at it. We didn't really need the slides anyhow. Any questions? Any questions from the members? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much, and we'll see you later on this morning, it sounds like.
Thank you
very much for the time.
Okay, great. All right, so members, before I forget, we need to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes. Could I get a motion in a second? From last week.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye. All opposed? Okay. All right, thank you very much. Federal partners, I have one update from Andy Harris's office, but do we have him or Alyssa on? Would like to give us some updates.
Hello, this is Jackie Gregory. I don't have any updates, but I'm available anytime you need anything, please reach out.
Okay, so we're looking to get the congressman on for a delegation meeting, and happy to hear him when he comes in. We're very excited about his leadership role in the Appropriations Committee. Keith Raffius did give me an update he wanted me to share, that the FEMA Aid for Firefighters grants closes today at 2:30, members. So you'll remember we sent out the information to you, and we need to have that in if you're helping, or if anybody on the call is working on that. Just know that 2:30 today is the cutoff. After that, if we're looking for letters of support from the federal delegation, those can be submitted at a later date. So just an announcement. Is there anything you want to add to that?
No, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, just let us know and we'll get letters of support out for any of your fire companies who have requested those grants. Okay,
great. So open conversation from the members. Anything that you want to discuss? Okay, so seeing no further questions, as a continuing conversation before we adjourn, as the governor's capital budget was adjusted from the prior administration, I know we're getting a lot of calls from different nonprofits and constituencies were part of the capital budget. For example, one was the Easton Hospital. That was $100 million in the capital budget, and I know we're trying to sort out what our role should be or can be in that process to try to get these appropriations back in a supplementary budget in the future. So if members would like for us to write letters of support that carry the weight of the Eastern Shore delegation, just let us know. We'll be glad to put that together for you and advocate. I know Benedictine School was another property that was a $2.5 million appropriation that is very important. So I could go down the list, as to be honest with you. I know we all have in our districts some folks that are asking. So without further comment on that, I see Delegate Hutchinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are we supposed to discuss anything about the letter of support for the trauma center?
The floor is yours. Tell us about your bill, and we'll call for a vote right now. I'm sure you'll have the support. Just tell us what we're going to be supporting.
Certainly. So it's cross-filed with the Senate, with Senator Carrozza as well. And so it is a bill to commission a commission to study trauma funding. This came about from our initial discussion with Title Health. What I have discovered, it's a statewide issue, and there's a lot of support for this commission to be created and to see a better way to be able to study or to fund the trauma system throughout the state of Maryland. So I'm asking for a letter of support from the Eastern Shore delegation.
Okay, Senator Carrozza, would you like to add on to that at all? I know this is your bill you're carrying in the Senate.
So I really appreciate Delegate Hutchinson taking the lead on this, but just as a little bit of background, you all will recall that Title Health presented to us about 3 weeks ago on the urgent situation with the trauma center. And so we're trying to work this challenge on multiple fronts. One is we're all working now to see what type of support we can get through the budget process. That's kind of intermediate. The purpose of the looking at the trauma funding for the long haul is to make sure that there is fairness in the funding for trauma centers statewide, and that you use that avenue as opposed to the situation we're in right now. So we would hope that the delegation would support what we're doing in the short term, with our efforts with the Moore administration to support Title Health, and also supporting the legislation that would allow for that longer term approach to how we do our trauma center funding. Also, I know that I don't know if Senator Hershey is on the call, but he's also been involved in these issues as well. So that's just a little overview that it's not only this one piece of legislation, it is a bigger issue for us as a delegation.
Yes, it is. And Senator, the letter of support that relates to the funding component that you just discussed is forthcoming. We were just trying to draft some language that met the point that you're making there, so we can send that out next week. And if you'd like to add or be part of how we're drafting that, just let me know, and we'll send that to you for that purpose. Do you have any questions on the bill related to the study on a trauma center? Any questions from the members on that? Any discussion? Delegate Arentz?
Yeah, just briefly, I think didn't most of us, I'm asking a question, did everybody sign on as a co-sponsor for the bills?
Delegate Hutchinson, did you get a co-sponsor list?
I'll have to look at the here I have on, it's House Bill 675, delegates Adams, Anderton, Ernst, Grist, Hartman, Jacobs, Otto, Sample Hughes, and Shalega.
And on the Senate side, all three Eastern Shore delegation senators, Senators Hershey and Mounts and myself, are on the bill.
It sounds like we have everybody covered. I would move the letter of support. Make a motion to move it.
Okay, can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, congratulations and Godspeed, Delegate Hutchinson and Senator Carrozza on that piece of legislation. And Delegate Hutchinson, that's your first of many big bills for us on the Eastern Shore, and congratulations for bringing an important issue forward for our benefit.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion from our members before we adjourn? Senator, okay, I saw you, Delegate Jacobs. Senator Mounts.
Just very quick for everyone, we did a delegation vote for Dorchester County. And so everybody knows that Tom Hutchinson is the House chair for the Dorchester delegation. And the House Chair for the Talbot delegation is going to be the delegation chair Adams. So he'll handle the Talbot stuff in the House. Just that it doesn't seem like much, but things can get pretty confusing pretty quickly. So I want to make sure everybody knows we've made those changes.
Senator, I'm at your disposal and supporting your home county the best I can. So thank you for the opportunity to participate. Delegate Jacobs, did you have a question? For the
No, I'm good.
Okay. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
So moved.
Second? All right. Have a good day, everyone.